In this video, Colin will introduce the stakeholder mapping process. You can use this process to organise your influencing challenges, priorities and goals.
What we're now going to turn to is analysing those powerful people that can help or hinder you moving towards your progress by looking at the stakeholder mapping process and the stakeholder management approach, which you've got in front of you or is available online. And this is a very simple device, and it's mind-numbingly simple in many respects, but the power comes from actually using it, taking pen and putting names on the paper, because if you've been diligent in thinking about who the powerful people are, you should now have a list of 8 to maybe 8, 10, 12 people who can have a powerful impact on what it is you're trying to do. And what you've got to do is to position them somewhere on this map. In doing this, you are going to start to identify and realise very simple things that you might be able to do to improve things. There's probably no one answer to any of this, but as you're going through it, and the exercises that follow in a moment will help you to do this, you'll start to realise, this is what I need to be doing, or didn't think about it quite that way, and this is the device on which you do it. So what I'm going to do is just now very quickly describe how to use this, and then we'll get into the detail of making and pulling the practical action out of it. But fundamentally, this is an analysis towards building your plan of action to move forward on your influencing goal. So what you've got in front of you is a simple 2x2, and I want you to take the name of an individual who is a stakeholder who has got a powerful impact one way or the other on what it is you're trying to achieve, and your job is to write their name somewhere on this piece of paper. And the 2 dimensions that I want you to think of, the 2 key considerations, are the relationship that you have with them, and this is where it differs from many other approaches to stakeholder management. Relationship is key critical to influence. This is why it is here. And the 3 aspects that I want you to start to consider about relationship are the level of trust that is existent in the relationship. That doesn't mean do you trust them, it means do you trust them and do they trust you? Because trust is a reciprocal phenomenon within a relationship. Trust is really about reliability. So do they do what they say they're going to do? Do they deliver on their promises? Can you believe what they're saying? And by the same token, can they do that of you? Do you say you're going to do something and then deliver? Or do you say you're going to do something, then something else happens and then somehow you don't get around to it? And then in a couple of weeks' time, you have to own up and say, sorry, I didn't do that. That's not high trust sort of behaviour. You may be noticing that in other people, and it's not an uncommon thing to have happen around a busy working environment, but you may also, with the best will in the world, get distracted and not manage other people's expectations in a high trust way. So you want to try and get a sense of, with the particular stakeholder that you're thinking about, how much trust is there in this relationship. The other aspect of the relationship to consider is the degree of openness. Because you might well be able to believe that when somebody says something, they're being truthful and it's the reality of the situation that you're dealing with. But equally, are they being open enough and actually volunteering information? Because in the best relationships, people will come up, tap you on the shoulder and say, by the way, I've heard this on the grapevine that this is happening. I thought you might need to be aware. Where it is voluntary, they don't have to. And I'm sure we've all got friends that we've had bitter experiences with where they've known something but not told us. If they had told us, it would have saved us a lot of heartache. Right? And it's exactly the same situation in your professional relationships. People, your stakeholders, will know an awful lot. To what degree are they prepared to open up and volunteer? And it could be a very personal sensitivity. I'm scared. I think I might be about to lose my job if you were to succeed on this. If they're prepared to be open with you, that's a good sign in the relationship. If they're being secretive and sly and sort of hiding things from you, then you're probably going to be moving people towards the left-hand side of this dimension. So openness is another thing. And the final thing on relationship is frequency. Because they can be quite open, you can have high trust, but if you never engage with them, what's the point? And so the combination of those 3 elements, you should be able to then guesstimate where on this dimension you need to put. And I forgot to say, and it's a really important thing, that some of the labels on this chart may be sort of getting an emotional reaction from you. One of the words there is enemy. This is just to provoke your thinking. It's not to say those people over there in that part of the organisation, they're the opposition, they're the enemies, that's the one we need to surround. And this is not it. But if they were enemies, what might be happening in this relationship? What might you be doing? Similarly with advocates, I mean, we used to use the word for that box, allies. allies are okay, but it's a bit weak. What you want is people shouting from the rooftop. So all of these labels are to spread people apart, to provoke your thinking so that you can come up with more practical ideas on what to do. Forgot to mention that earlier on. So on the relationship, you've got to guesstimate one way or the other and the strength of that relationship. So if it's really, really negative, they're going to go way down to the left, really, really positive way up to the right. And in the middle, there's a grey zone, a grey area. And that could be because you don't know the stakeholder. Maybe they've only just been put in a position, you've never met them before, so you don't know. So it's a way the jury is still out on that relationship, or maybe there's conflicting evidence. I still want you to write the name down in the position. Then we got the other dimension. The other dimension is quite interesting because, again, this helps when you're really clear on your focus. If you're really clear what you want somebody to do, or to believe, or what you want somebody to feel, they're more likely to agree with you straight away. As soon as you are clear, this is, oh, is that what you want me to do? Of course I can do that. And that's why, one of the reasons why it's really useful earlier in the process to get very, very clear. Because then it makes this dimension, and as part of the analysis, much easier to do. So you can just gauge to what extent are they agreeing with what it is you're trying to achieve here. And again, the further up, the more in agreement they are. But there's an interesting thing that happens on this dimension. Because the higher up, the more they are agreeing with you, chances are the greater benefit they're going to gain from your success. The higher the level of interest. So maybe it's going to make their life, a doddle. It's going to make everything very, very easy. Maybe they're going to get a big bonus or achieve one of their targets, etc. So if they're going to gain a lot, they're probably going to be likely to agree with you. The other thing about it is the more they agree, the greater interest, the more they'll do for you. So the higher the level of their activity. The unfortunate thing about that is the opposite is also true. So the more disagreement, the more they're going to lose, the more they'll do to try and stop you. Which in a way is where we start to get some of the labels that we've used, because in the enemies box, you've got people who disagree with you and don't like you. All right, hence we got inspired with the word enemy. So what I'm asking you to do is to take each name and put them somewhere on this map as a working hypothesis. This is not to label them, this is just your starting position as we go into the following exercises to challenge what do you need to do. And let me just give you an example, and then we'll close and move on to some questions. Advocates quite often are people like line managers, people who are naturally on side, your big customers, people who you've worked with for a long time. They will be quite safely in that box. Down on the lower side, you've got the critics on the bottom right. Critics is a difficult word because what I'm trying to mean there is critical friend, because you've got a good relationship with them, right? And they'll tell you honestly why your idea is not right. It might be because of the way you've specified your focus. So if you've decided that you want to implement this particular innovation or project by the end of this year, and they think, okay, it's a really good idea, but not this year, next year, they could be in the critics box because they're not agreeing with the way you've phrased your... And then that offers the opportunity, well, let's go negotiate. So what have I got to do? And because you've got the good relationship, they'll tell you what's wrong. They'll tell you what needs to change. You can have that debate with them, and then you can agree, okay, where can we move? How can we change this? Okay. And then it's very quick that they can start to move into a different position on the map. That's the positive side. On the negative side, on the left-hand side of the chart, you've got the players. And this is a word that I really like, and it's been mentioned a few times before, people saying yes and doing no. So I'm sure you've been in a meeting and everybody's agreed, yes, we'll do that by next Friday, and somehow they never do. The actions don't meet the words. And there's something going on that you don't know about, something in the relationship. Maybe they're being pulled in another direction. Somebody else outside of that meeting is trying to influence them. But whatever it is, this is why I like the word, they're playing you. They're saying one thing and doing another. All right? And this is where the problem comes, maybe even the opportunity to change things is there's something wrong in the relationship where they're not prepared to level with you. Okay, so you would focus more on building the relationship with them because theoretically they're saying they agree, so you should be okay, but something's not quite getting right. And then in the bottom, we've already spoken about, is the enemies. They're the people who don't like you and don't agree with what you're doing. And so the idea is you populate your map, you put the different names in the different boxes or in the grey zones between them, and then you start to ask a series of questions, and we'll do this in the exercise that follows. What needs to change? What are the key themes here? So to achieve my objective, to reach my focus and to hit that goal, what have I got to move here? What are the small things, simple things, easy changes that could dramatically affect the progress. And fundamentally what you're trying to do, and we'll talk about the best practice a little bit later on this afternoon, is you're trying to shift enough power up to the top right-hand corner that your objective gets met. You don't have to get everybody there. You have to get sufficient power that your focus, your proposal, your goal is achieved. And that's what we're going to be working on as we go through the exercises that follow.